Come on, get on my back. Too exhausted to argue, she nodded and climbed onto his back. Jisoo carried her all the way home, his stride steady as he navigated the familiar path. Once inside, he set her down gently and grabbed a glass of water, helping her take the medicine. "Thank you," she whispered. The closeness they shared only highlighted the unresolved tension from the prom. They sat together in silence as the medicine kicked in and Tolu's headache began to fade. Finally, she took a deep breath, summoning the courage to ask the question that had weighed heavily on her mind over the past day. This might be her only chance. "Are you dating Soo-jin again?" she asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Jisoo paused, caught off guard. Each second of hesitation felt like a stab to her heart. Finally, he looked at her intently and shook his head. "No, I'm not." Relief flooded through Tolu, but she needed to ask more. "I was just confused at prom," she said, the hurt welling up inside her. "You completely abandoned me for her. It really hurt." "I should have explained better," he admitted, and she detected a note of remorse in his voice that surprised her. Tolu could hardly believe her ears. This didn't sound like the Jisoo she knew, yet here he was, actually apologizing. Despite the uncertainty that lingered between them, this felt like a start. A huge burden lifted off her chest. The next morning, Tolu felt better. She woke to the delicious aroma of breakfast wafting through the house. She shuffled downstairs, her stomach grumbling in anticipation. Mrs. Han greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning, Tolu. I made your favorites, kimchi and rice." "Thanks, Mrs. Han," Tolu exclaimed, eyeing the spread with delight. Jisoo joined them a moment later, still half asleep but undeniably handsome. Tolu's heart raced at the sight of him, her mind replaying their conversation from the previous night. As they sat at the table, Mrs. Han began discussing Jisoo's academic achievements. "He's always been top of his class," she said proudly. "Tolu, if you ever need help with class, you two should study together." Tolu appreciated the suggestion, but then she recalled the one time Jisoo had asked her for help with studying. Why would he need her assistance if he was so smart? Suddenly, it clicked. Maybe he just wanted her in his room. Her cheeks flushed at the thought. Mrs. Han noticed her distraction. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yes," Tolu replied. She glanced at Jisoo. "I would appreciate it if you could help me study," she said, attempting to keep her tone casual. Jisoo paused mid-chew to look at her but didn't respond. Disappointment washed over Tolu as he returned to his food, leaving her wondering if their conversation from the night before had made any real difference. Before they left for school, Mrs. Han pulled Tolu aside, handing her a small photo. "Here, I want you to have this," she said, winking. Tolu looked down to find a picture of a younger Jisoo making a goofy face. "Oh, thank you," she laughed. "Just a little good luck charm for exams," Mrs. Han said. Jisoo approached, frowning. "What's that?" "Nothing." Tolu quickly tucked it into her pocket, her heart racing at the thought of showing it to him. As they headed out the door for school, Tolu felt a flutter of nerves. It had been a long time since she walked side by side with Jisoo. Tolu still couldn't help but steal glances at him. Arriving at school, Tolu felt a rush of nerves and excitement. Students complimented her on the prom dress she had worn that weekend, and she basked in the positive attention. "You looked stunning," one girl said. "Thanks," Tolu replied, her confidence swelling despite Soo-jin glaring at her from across the hall. During lunch, some classmates approached her with eager smiles. "We loved your braids at prom. Can you do them for me?" they asked excitedly. "Of course," Tolu replied, her heart lifting at their enthusiasm. As she styled their hair, Minho joined their table. His gaze was focused on Tolu, as if he was hoping for a reaction from her after their kiss the previous night. Tolu felt his eyes on her, but avoided his gaze, redirecting her attention to her classmates. Minho cracked jokes, but it was clear he wanted to talk more, perhaps to ask her on another date. Feeling overwhelmed, Tolu excused herself. She needed a moment to gather her thoughts, so she stepped outside to grab some water. As Tolu filled her water bottle, she spotted Jisoo shooting hoops on the basketball court. He looked incredibly focused, effortlessly sinking basket after basket. Her heart raced at the sight. Feeling bold, Tolu approached him. "Hey," she called out, her pulse quickening with each step. "Hey," he responded flatly, not looking up. She wondered where his friendly energy from the previous night went. Nonetheless, she cleared her throat. "I was wondering if you could help me study," she said, trying to keep her tone casual. "Your mum said you're smart." "I don't have time," he replied curtly, turning his back to her. Determined, Tolu pulled out the photo of him as a child. "If you don't help me, I'm showing this to everyone," she threatened, waving it teasingly. "Hey, give that back!" he shouted, realizing what she was holding. Tolu darted away, laughter bubbling up. "Catch me if you can!" Jisoo chased her around a nearby tree, their laughter mingling with the adrenaline in the air. Students watching from the gym's windows whispered and pointed, clearly entertained by the playful chase. Just then, Soojin stormed over, breaking through the crowd. "What's going on?" she asked. Her expression darkened as she caught sight of Tolu and Jisoo. Minho joined the crowd too, surprised to see the interaction unfold. Hani shot him a worried glance, sensing that he might react negatively to the closeness between Tolu and Jisoo. After the playful chase, Jisoo finally agreed to help Tolu study later that day. As the school day wrapped up, news spread quickly that Jisoo would assist Tolu with exam preparations. "Can I join?" a student asked, followed by a wave of requests until a small crowd had gathered, eager to attend. Tolu exchanged nervous glances with Hani. "I guess we're having a study session," she said, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and anxiety. They all agreed to meet at Jisoo's house. When Tolu and Hani arrived at Jisoo's later that evening, they were met with a bustling scene. A group of classmates had already settled in, snacks spread out on the table. Tolu felt a rush of anxiety at the sight, knowing how Jisoo might react when he arrived home. No, we can't have this many people. Some of you have to go," Tolu exclaimed, her voice rising in panic. "Why do you care? It's his house," another student countered, earning nods of approval from the group. Tolu's heart raced. That's right, no one knew she lived there too. Just then the door swung open and Jisoo walked in, startled to see the crowd. "What's going on?" he asked, his eyes widening in disbelief. Hi, Jisoo! The classmates chorused, their voices bright and cheerful. Jisoo shoots Tolu a dirty look.